everyone, and welcome back to another yoga class. Today I am joined by my mother, Shauna, who was instructing us through Tuesday's class, so we have her coming back and helping me out today. The benefit of having us both here is my mom is going to do the modified version, so anyone that would like to do a more modified flow, you can follow mom, and then I'll be doing more of the advanced version of today's flow. So today has been specifically made to combat sitting at a desk. So we're going to be doing a lot of hip and chest openers to combat all of this that we're doing. So expect lots of opening and relieving all the tension that we hold in our hips and in our chest. And yeah, we hope you enjoy it. Let's get right into it. We'll all start in child's pose. So in child's pose, take a wide-legged child's pose. If you're very stiff, you can place a block. If you don't have a block, you can place a pillow underneath your hips. And then just draw your forehead to the mat. Arms extend out long. And just take a few breaths here. Your fingers and your wrists, and then make your way up into a seated position, and then we'll come into a half kneeling pose. So again, if you have any knee discomfort, you can place a cushion underneath your knee, and we'll lift our right knee up in the front, so we're in a 90-90 kneeling position. Sweep your arms up overhead, and then bending at the elbows, come into a cactus pose, drawing your chest forward as you lean into your front hip to open up the left side. As you exhale, shoot your hips back, elongating your front leg to forward fold over. Inhale back to open up the front hip. And then exhale, send your hips back, stretching out the right hamstring. One more time, coming through cactus arms, opening up the chest, stretching the left hip flexor, and then forward folding over. Return to your half kneeling pose. And we'll come into King Arthur, a new pose for us. So with your left hand, begin to reach for your left foot. So drawing that up to get a nice quad stretch. And you're basically just going to draw your foot as close into your bum as you can, feeling a nice stretch. But again, you don't want to be in any pain or discomfort. So this might be where you want a cushion under your knee if you have sensitive knees. And again, we're trying to tuck the tailbone under here to get a greater stretch in the left hip. So we're not poking our bum out, but we're tucking it under. Lower your foot back down to the ground, and we'll switch sides. So our left foot is now out in front. Again, tilting our tailbone under to get a nice stretch to the right side this time. Arms sweep up overhead. Bend at the elbows into cactus as you lean forward in hip. And last time, forward fold. And then come back into your half kneeling pose. And we'll come into King Arthur on the right side. So again, draw your heel up to your bum. Right hand reaches for the foot. Your chest is nice and tall here. Again, we're finding that nice long line through the spine. Hold for 3, 2, and 1. Release your foot. And then we'll all make our way to the top of our mat in mountain pose. So again, in mountain pose, your toes are together, heels slightly apart, or you can take hips width apart. Your arms are down by your sides, palms facing open, so your chest is nice and open here. And the chin is packed, kind of giving yourself that double chin to make sure that the back of the neck is nice and long here. Place your hands on your low back, or the top of your bum basically, squeezing your elbows in together as you come into a gentle back bend. And again, it's coming from the top of the back. We're not shooting our hips forward. It's mostly coming from right under your ribs. Exhale, hinge at the hips to forward fold. Arms can reach for the ground. Head hangs heavy here. Place your hands on your shins or just above your knees to push up to flat back. Exhale, back to forward fold. This time, plant your palms on the mat and step your feet back to high plank, high push-up. Fingers are spread out wide here. Shift the weight into your hands. Squeeze your elbows in by your sides as you lower down through chaturanga. And then inhale up to the back bend of your choice. On an exhale, tuck your toes, send your hips up and back into downward facing dog. We'll stay here for 3 breaths to give you the opportunity to pedal out your feet, maybe sway your hips side to side, or playing around with the placement of your hands, maybe taking a wider stance with your hands to allow your head to come through your shoulders, or taking a wider stance with your feet, if that's more comfortable downward dog for you. Come up onto your toes, bend your knees, look between your hands, and step to the front of your mat, back into forward fold. Push up to flat back, and then come back down through your forward fold, hang heavy here. Keep a slight bend in your knees and slowly roll up, kind of ragdolling up to stand, and your head will come up last. That's our first sun salutation A. We'll do that one more time. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Exhale, hinge at the hips to forward fold. Push up to flat back. Come down through your forward fold. Plant your hands and either step or hop back to your high plank, high push-up. Shift the weight into your hands. Squeeze your elbows in by your sides as you lower down through your chaturanga. And inhale up to the back bend of your choice. Send your hips up and back into downward facing dog. Come up onto your toes, bend your knees, look between your hands, and step to the front of your mat, back into forward fold. Push up exhale, hands to heart center. Again, sweep your arms up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Come through to your flat back. And return to your forward fold. Plant your palms and step or hop back into your high plank, high push-up. Shift the weight into your hands. Squeeze your elbows by your sides and come into upward facing dog or cobra. Remember to open up that chest. Tuck your toes, send your hips up and back into downward facing dog. On an inhale, sweep your left foot up behind you and step it between your hands. Inhaling as you come up through your warrior two. So again, in warrior two, your back foot is parallel to the back of your mat or slightly turned in. Your hips and shoulders are stacked and your gaze is over your middle finger. Begin to lower your left hand, so your front hand, down into side angle pose. Again, choosing the variation that's best for you. You do have the option to come into an arm bind. If you're in an arm bind, release the bind. And then we'll all inhale back up to warrior two. Flip your front palm to exalt your warrior. Come back to warrior two. Straighten your front leg. Maybe heel toe your back leg in just a little bit. And then shoot your hips out to the back. Lean forward as far as you can. And when you can't reach any further, lower your hand down to the ground into triangle. Inhale, come to stand. Place your hands on your hips. Square your feet off to the side wall. And then clasp your hands behind your back. Rolling your shoulders around, clasping your hands. And then hinge from the hips to forward fold. Shauna's just placing her hands on her hips. So you can do that variation as well. If your hands are clasped, try to draw them as far away from your low back as possible. Slowly lower your hands down to your low back. Place your hands on your hips. Inhale, come to stand. And then turn your right toes to the back of your mat. Again, looking for that heel to arch alignment. Your hands come parallel to the ground and lunge into that right knee back into warrior two. Lower your front hand, so your right hand down to the mat into side angle pose. Again, choosing whichever variation is best for you. If you are in an arm bind, release your bind. And then all together we'll inhale back up to warrior two. Flip your front palm and side bend over to exalt your warrior. Return to warrior two. Straighten your front leg. Maybe heel toe your back leg in just a little bit. Then shoot your hips out to the back. Lean forward as far as you can, and when you can't reach any further, lower inhale to stand. Place your hands on your hips. Square your feet off to the side wall. And then we're coming back into that wide-legged forward fold again. So you can place your hands in your back pockets, squeezing your elbows in together like we did in mountain pose to really open up the chest. Or you can clasp your hands behind your chest, opening up, and then hinge from the hips, forward fold. Place your hands on your hips, come up to flat back, and then all the way to stand. Your left toes turn to point to the front of your mat, and step to the top of your mat, back into mountain pose. Place your hands in your imaginary back pockets, squeeze your elbows together, and then come into that gentle back bend. Begin to hinge from the hips to forward folds. Inhale to flat back. And exhale back to your forward fold. Plant your palms and step or hop back into your high plank high push-up. Shift the weight into your hands. Squeeze your elbows into your sides. And then come up through your back bend. Tuck your toes, send your hips up and back into downward facing dog. Sweep your left foot up behind you, bend at the knee, and then begin to lower it to your right side to open up the left hip. So your chest is still squared off, but we're opening up the hips here. And then begin to square your hips off again. And step your left foot up between your hands. Inhale, sweep the arms up overhead into crescent lunge. The back heel remains lifted here. Begin to lower your hands down by your sides. Shift the weight into your left foot, so your front foot, and we're coming up into Warrior 3. If you need something to help you in Warrior 3, you can use blocks or pillow, a chair, or even a wall out in front of you to help you balance. So we're shifting up into Warrior 3. Your right foot, so your back foot is flexed as if you're pushing into a wall behind you. And your hips are squared, so we're not opening up here. We're trying to square the hips so that we can have a glass of water on our low back and it would be able to stay nice and even. Place your left hand on the mat and begin to open up your hips to the side wall. Your right hand will reach up towards the sky. So now our hips and our chest are open to the side wall. Begin to lower your right foot down to meet your left. And then your hands will sweep up overhead as we come into chair pose. Begin to peel your left heel away from the mat and step it back into crescent lunge. Again, begin to shift the weight into your front foot. Arms come down by your sides, coming up and through into Warrior 3. Flexing that back foot. Your right hand reaches for the mat, opening up your chest and hips to the side wall into half move. left foot will lower down to meet right, and your arms sweep up overhead into chair pose. Inhale, come to stand. Exhale, palms down to heart center. Take 2 breaths here. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to flat back. Exhale, forward fold. Plant the palms and step or hop back into your high plank, high push-up. Shift the weight into your hands. Squeeze your elbows as you come down through your push-up, and inhale to the back bend of your choice. Tuck your toes, send your hips up and back into downward facing dog. And this time, float your right foot up behind you, bending at the knee, and then dropping your right foot over to the left side to open up the right rib this time. Square your hips off again, and then lower your right foot back down to your left. Pedal at your feet here. Take a deep breath. And then shift your weight forward into your hands. Squeeze your elbows in by your sides. We're all lowering all the way down to our belly. We'll come into locust here. So arms will come down by your sides. Your thumbs point down. Your baby fingers point up. And we're squeezing everything into the midline, drawing our shoulder blades together, contracting all of our muscles, lifting our legs away from the floor as we come up into locust. So on an inhale, draw everything into the midline, trying to pull the chest away from the mat, the legs away from the mat. Hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly lower down. Your hands can come underneath your head just to rest for a few breaths. We're going to come into locust one more time. You have the option to do locust again and follow Shauna's lead. Or if you would like to take it a little bit further, we're going to come into bow pose. So if you are ready, I'll just quickly explain bow. We have done this before. So you're going to draw your heels in towards your bum. Your hands will wrap around the outside of your feet, around the ankles. This is how we start. And then your feet are going to push into your hands to lift you away from the mat. So you have the option for locust or for bow. Either way, we'll prep to get ready. And on an inhale, lift up. And hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Slowly lower down. Arms can come in front of your face to rest your head. And then when you're ready, we'll push up back into our kneeling position. Again, so your knees are going to line up right underneath your hips. We'll come into camel pose. So So Shauna will demonstrate the first variation, where your hands will come into your back pocket, similar to what we were doing again in mountain pose and in our wide-legged forward fold. Squeezing your elbows in together to open up the chest, doing that mild back bend. So that's your first option. If you'd like to come into a deeper version, tuck your toes underneath, sit back on your heels, and place your hands kind of like you're grabbing your heels, and then begin to lift your hips up away from your feet. So coming like this. So in camel, try to line your hips up over top of your knees so that you're not way back here. Again, really opening up the chest. Slowly come out of camel. And then we'll come into child pose as a counter pose to this deeper back bend. When you're ready to move, we'll all make our way onto our back. So knees will be bent, feet flat on the mat, with your feet about hip width apart, and your heels nice and close to your bum so that you can almost brush your fingertips on your heels. We'll come into bridge pose. We're going to do it twice. They can both be an active version of bridge, or your second one can be a passive version. So start by tucking your shoulder blades underneath to open up the chest. And I like to start by grasping the mat, but your hands can be down by your side if you like as well. And then begin to press weight into your heels to lift your hips up. So on an inhale, shift the weight into your heels, driving down into the mat as you lift your hips up. Keeping your shoulders tucked here. And even if you would like, clasping your fingertips underneath to really open up the chest. Make sure that your knees aren't swaying outwards, but that you're staying nice and in line. We'll hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Unclasp your hands if they are clasped, and slowly lower down. Draw your knees into your chest. Give a nice little rock here. And we'll do that one more time. If you would like to do the passive variation, all you'll do is place either a block or a pillow underneath your hips and just rest. So this takes all the work out of it for you, but it's a nice way to begin cooling down the body. If you'd like to do the active version one more time, on an inhale, drive your weight into your heels, lifting the hips up away from the ground. And then finding a hand placement that's for you, either by your side, or grasping the mat, or clasping your hands underneath your back. Slowly begin to lower down. If you have a block or a pillow underneath your hips, just remove that and place it to the side. And then draw your knees back into your chest, rocking side to side. Alright, we'll all rock up into a seated position. We'll come into cobbler's pose. So again, in cobbler's pose, our feet are together, heels or knees open up like a book, and we're sitting up nice and tall. So again, we don't want to find that rounding the back, but we're sitting up nice and tall on our sits bones. Drawing the heels in as close to your center as is comfortable. Trying to draw your an added stretch. Hinge from the hips to fold over, trying to draw your chest down to the mat versus your head. If your knees are popping up, you can place a block or books or pillow underneath, as Shauna's demonstrating, just so that your legs have something to relax into. If you don't have anything like that available, just take your feet out a little bit further, just so that your muscles can relax. But you will get a better stretch if you can place something underneath your knees to relax into. Sit back up nice and tall with your hands closed, your legs up like a book. And then we're going to come into tabletop position. Tuck your toes, send your hips up and back into a momentary downward facing dog. With your right leg lifted up behind you, and then step it on the outside of your right hand. Lower your back knee onto the mat. Again, you might want to pillow or roll up your mat underneath your knee if you have sensitive knees. We'll come into lizard here. So in lizard, we're opening up the foot so that we're on the side, the right side edge of the foot. You can stay like this, or if you would like a deeper stretch, you can lower down to open up the hip. Planting the foot firmly on the mat. With your back toes, tuck your toes, and we're extending our feet back into downward facing dog. The right foot floats up behind us. And this time, we're coming into pigeon. So if you do have knee sensitivity, Shauna's going to direct you through figure 4 if you have knee sensitivity. If you don't, draw right knee in towards right wrist to come into pigeon, and then elongate your back leg to forward folds. If you'd like to come into figure 4, follow Shauna. She's on her back with her right ankle crossing over top of left knee, and then you can either hug your left thigh in towards your chest by wrapping around the back of the thigh or in front of the knee, depending on how intense of a stretch that you would like. If you're in pigeon, shift the weight into your hands, tuck your back toes, and we're coming back into downward facing dog. If you're in figure 4, just make your way on up into downward facing dog. This time, send your left foot up behind you, and then step it on the outside of your left hand. Lower your right knee down to the ground, and then come on the outside of your left foot. So again, you can see the bottom of your left foot now. You can stay up tall on Shavasana, our final resting pose.